Before we get into that, my name is Tina Holland. Every first Friday of the month at 11:30 Central Standard Time, I host First Friday Lunch. If you decide that you like this content, please give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel if you also like it and would like to see more of this stuff. So let's get into First Friday Lunch. I'm going to cover some stuff that's going on personal and writing and publishing, and then our hot topic today is how to choose a cover, which is why you have a different view, so I can see my screen in front of me and not misread anything like I sometimes do, because I don't want to be sitting there like that, because that's not a very nice view, is it? So, but yep, this is normally, just for your information, this is normally a guest room. And it's also my office. So usually what you'll see is the other side with I have a bookshelf over here and then my desk or whatever. And so now you're looking at bookshelf over here. There's a chair you can't see down here. There's a bed underneath this window. And there's my Kanban board in front of a picture that I normally have. So anyway, let's get into it. Personal, doing pretty good, pretty good health-wise. I actually just had a cortisone injection I think it was last Thursday on this finger, my ring finger on my right hand. My right hand is my dominant hand, so I use it for moving my mouse, shifting in my car. I drive a stick shift, and like everything else, holding a cup of coffee, pouring coffee. So I went in, and I guess what was happening is it was like locking in this position. And my husband was like, whatever. And I remember he's like, was working on my Mini, and the battery had died so bad. There's a lever underneath the back seat that you have to pull to open the boot where the battery is. And so he's like, can you just come out here and help me do this? And I'm like, sure. And I went to pull it and my finger locked in that position. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. And he's like, yeah, you should probably get that fixed. So I had mentioned it to my massage therapist, and she's like, yeah, go get the shot, because a lot of times that will help quite a bit. And it has not locked to the severity that it did before. I guess what happens is this tendon will swell. And so there's a bunch of stuff you can do, icing and stuff like that. But she's like, yeah, if you get the shot, you can probably avoid having surgery. So I was like, cool. So went in and did that. That was fine. Didn't have any issues with it at all. So that's only like personal thing that I've got going on. We're going into summer. The barn swallows have showed up, which means it's going to get hot, humid, and we're probably going to have mosquitoes in a couple of weeks, because it seems like they always time their arrival around that. A lot of people don't like barn swallows because they'll nest on the side of your house. Like they'll build a mud nest underneath your eaves. And because that's like the best spot, really. And so a lot of people will like tear down their nests, and we're like, nope, they eat over 100 mosquitoes a day. They can stay, because I do not like mosquitoes. So if you followed me on the A to Z blog for any of the stuff that I did for that, I probably mentioned like how much I hate mosquitoes in at least 3 of the blogs. Anyway, so let's move on to writing and publishing, because that'll kind of segue into our hot topic today of how to choose a cover. So writing and publishing, if you followed me last month, or if you've been following me on social media at all, you know that I just finished the second story in my Regency series, Bad Guide series, which stands for Bold and Adventurous Debutante. And so, although I don't really have, the first one didn't have a debutante in it, so whatever. I just finished that novella. I got the cover art back this week. I actually got one back last week, and then we did some talking back and forth, and I'll talk about how that process went. And then I got my appointment with my editor for May 19th. So I'm hoping to get that here to her in a little bit. And then, so I got the appointment with the editor. Yeah, and maybe a June release. I'm kind of thinking June 15th, but we'll see. We'll see what the edits come back as. So I don't like to like pick a date until after I've gotten the edits back and I do the work and get it, whatever. And then like I might be able to look at the edits and say, okay, I can do these I do edits fast. I'm like, yep, change it. So then I will usually set a release date for pre-order like a month out on Amazon and Ingram. Or not Ingram. I'll do it on Draft to Digital for the ebook, but the Ingram will have the print book. Okay. So that is that. Let's jump into our hot topic. So I'm going to do a demo share screen here. That one. And then I will. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this little slideshow. I don't know if that's going to work. Hold on. Let me check and see if that worked. No. Okay. I got to share. There we go. Present. Share screen. I'm just going to do that because then I want to do this one for now. Well, actually, I'll do this one for now because I want to go through this. So the first thing that you need to do when you're going to design a cover is go ahead and do some research. So, and when you're talking about research, what we're talking about is you want to research the genre that you write in and see what covers are selling within the subgenre. If you're planning to do a paperback, you want to see what the most common size is. So like the How to Marry a Major is a Regency romance, which is why I pulled up the Regency. I just pulled up Regency romance on Amazon to kind of see. And so apparently it's giving me populations of women's shirts first, but whatever. And then if you're planning to do a paperback, you want to see what the most common size is. And for romance, generally, it seems to be 5x8 or 5.5 by 8.5. I already have other books that are 5.5 by 8.5. So that is the size that I chose for the first book and for the second book, even though that's probably going to make it much shorter, but it'll probably be a cheaper book for people to buy as well if they start the series. So what I'm going to do is I'm already on Amazon. And as you can see, I Googled Regency romance. And what I want to do is I'm just going to kind of narrow down past these sponsored. Okay, Mary Below has the first one that's not sponsored. So I'm going to click on this Matter of Class, a novel. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. And if you're going wide, you'll want to do something very similar to this on Barnes and Noble or any other platforms like Kobo. But it seems to me that okay, why am I not pulling up what I want to see here? Okay, so we got that usually down here at the bottom. Okay, here we go. All the way down past all this advertising review. Okay, so here's what I'm looking for. I am looking for this, the bestsellers section. I want to go to Regency romance specifically. So this is number 362. But when I click on this, what it's going to show is these are the top 100 Regency romance books. So if you look here, I would discount, if you're going wide, discount anything that says Kindle Unlimited, although there will be similarities between a wide book and a Kindle Unlimited book. You're going to want to look for anything that is looks like it's wide. Like this looks like it's wide. It doesn't have this Kindle Unlimited feature up here. So kind of looking through, it seems like there's a lot of like solo people on the covers. It can also mean sometimes there is like this is becoming very popular right now. This is Kindle Unlimited, but it's this kind of muted cover style and almost looks like a painting. That's becoming popular in Regency romance. This looks like it might be a mystery because there's nobody on the cover. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times single covers with the women on there could be that it's clean. If there's like not embrace or half naked people. See, here's another one of those muted painty at least this part looks painty, the background. So also look at like the fonts, like the scrolling font is very, now this one's got like the first letter and then the rest of the letters are like a normal font. And then this one's like a script right in front. So that's interesting. Also, this particular style of font has been very popular since Bridgerton because this is the font that's used on the Bridgerton novels. So you'll see this particular style of font very popular. But yeah, here's another one with like the scrolling font. I'm seeing a lot of single single females on the front. This is put out by a publisher. So this is Dragon Blade Publishing. So Emily E.K. Murdoch probably has a little bit. She probably put, if I remember from my days working with a publisher, it was you'd fill out this form and then you'd kind of get it. But what you get back, you have a kind of a limited number of choices, and then you kind of are, especially the bigger the publisher. The bigger the publisher, you kind of get what you get. You know, if you're published with HarperCollins or Hatchet or Harlequin, even, you're kind of going to get the cover you're going to get. So yeah, a lot of single women. Here's another publisher. So what this kind of tells me is there may be with these, it might just be a style choice, which is entirely popular. This is like the first one we saw with a female embrace. Also, a lot of these ones with the men on the cover can also indicate more of a steamy book if they have the man versus the woman. So these are both Kindle Unlimited, and Kindle Unlimited is going to have a different selling type than people that don't. So a lot, and it's not surprising that most of the top 100 are Kindle Unlimited books. This was, oh yeah, it's a classic. That's not, this looks like it's an older style or whatever, and that's Pride and Prejudice, obviously. So, okay, so this is kind of what you're looking for. This is Kindle Unlimited, but I know Tessa Dare is wide, so there must be some sort of a deal with her publisher to have this book in Kindle Unlimited. But this to me indicates that this is kind of a sexiness going on. There's going to be a little more heat level to it. So this is so I'm just kind of looking like what kind of colors are popular, what kind of fonts are popular. I'm going to be limited because this is book 2, so I'm going to want fonts that are similar to the first book. All right, so I'm just going to go through all these kind of just really fast to click and see. This open shirt also maybe indicates a higher heat level. So what you kind of want to do is you want to basically look and see if what you're making is similar to, actually, yeah. So I got up here and then the audiobook came up. See this font? So this is the Bridgerton font, and it is so common. You will see it on other covers. And a lot of the early ones, see, it's this, and it's just this. But I know for a fact Julia Quinn has some heat to some of these stories. So same thing with this. It's just a profile. And I think this is because these are published with traditional publishers. This is the style that they went with. And you can kind of see too that there's a big difference. Like this one's with a window backdrop. It's the font is what's saying this is a Julia Quinn book. And her name seems to be kind of in a pink color on these two. This one is also, they seem to be going with this profile one. And I'm wondering too if that is because I know they have a broader heat level, or not, probably standard heat. I wouldn't call them erotic, but it's probably a standard heat level for Regency romance. But I wonder if this cover probably appeals to a broader range because you don't have like the classic bodice ripper clinch on the cover. And so that, even though this is a thumbnail and these are probably all going to go straight to the ebook version, if you were going to buy the paperback, it might be something people want to be seen with more than this particular cover. But actually all these look pretty good. Even like this one looks very nice. So okay, so this one here, Daphne Byrne, they did a similar font style down here as the Bridgerton covers. So I wouldn't worry too much about your specific name font unless you've got, I mean, you want to pick one that you like. Like if you were to pick up a Christy Caldwell book, all this font, that will be the same font that's almost on all the covers, especially if she's self-publishing them. So once you pick a font, that's probably the one that you want to keep consistently, because that's also for the reader to say, oh, okay, I've seen this person before because I remember the way that name was written out. So yeah, there's one that's kind of got this painting style. And you will also see publishers, if they don't let you like pick your name or whatever, you will see that the font will be similar between two different authors. And I wouldn't even guess this one here by Violet Hammers is the Scottish Duchess. Okay, his Scottish Duchess. Okay. So see, here's an earlier Julia Quinn one. Minx, but her font, so this is by her publisher, totally different than the other fonts that we saw on her books. So the other thing is too, is sometimes the like, okay, Mariah Stone here, she's in Kindle Unlimited, probably an independently published book, but see the title of this is smaller. The title, Duke of Wrath, is smaller than her name, Mariah Stone. So she's got a large enough, but here, over here, this is also her book. Her name is tiny at the top of this one, and it says Project Duke. So what I'm seeing is, if I hadn't already committed to my first book, what I'm seeing is there tend to be a lot more single women on the front, regardless of heat level. So that's something that's changing. The one thing I am not seeing is, for a while, there were these kind of cartoony covers that were out, and they were very popular when like this kind of a cover, or even more cartoony. These were very popular when my first book, How to Marry a Major, came out. So it's just been a year, a little over a year, and see how much the covers have changed. We've gone from a lot of the solo females, solo heroine on the cover, from these cartoony ones that were extremely popular when my first book came out. So in this particular, oh, see, here's a Pride and Prejudice. So these are this looks sort of mystery-ish to me because of the dark colors. So, okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to close this out, and we won't talk about that anymore. Let me go ahead and, I have a comment over here. So let's see if that's a question. Oh, Barb's in. Hi, Barb. All right. So the next thing is, when you're going to look at cover design, and we just talked about research. So that was kind of, I just wanted to show you that very briefly. And in Amazon's the easiest way to search it. But if you're going to go wide, take the time to go ahead and look through Barnes and Noble or Kobo, or even at your local bookstore. Like if you go to your local bookstore, they will kind of have, in my case, the Regency, or romance is its own section, but you could kind of look and see which ones do they have facing, here we go, if facing out, so facing this way. So, and Coffee Create Connect joined us. So Barb joined us, and hello to Coffee Create Connect. Wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see you. So, she's not going to stay very long, but she'll join us later. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show the rest of this slideshow and kind of the evolution of my cover, if you will. So let's see, share screen, and we're going to share this one. Okay, actually, I'm going to close down this Zoom. I don't know why I've got that up. Okay, so we just talked about the research. So what you want to do is you want to research your genre and see what the subgenre you were in. So I'm obviously romance, and then the Regency romance would be the subgenre, or historical. So, and if you're planning to do paperback, what's the most common size? So this is the 5.5 by, this is a 5.5 by an 8.5, and I have one in the other room that I'm reading from by Caroline Lee, which is 5 by 8. So I kind of wonder if I didn't make a mistake doing a 5 by 8 for these Regencies versus 5.5 by 8.5. But, hindsight is 2020. I may redo the first paperback at some point, but I don't want to invest all the money in the cover art at this point. And I don't want to have two different size books. So, because there's almost going to be a series of 7. So this is my first book, How to Marry a Major. It's a historical Regency. It's bold, not muted. Although that was not a concern of mine when I was publishing. Like I said, the cartoony covers were much more common. And I thought about, I was almost did a cartoony cover. The reason being is because it was so popular in the genre that I thought that would help sell it. But I didn't want to, because I do have some heat level to this. So there are some sex scenes, love scenes in this book. So I wanted to show that. So I wanted a couple embracing to kind of give that heat level. And I wanted a couple because I thought that that better indicated that it was not sweet. So not to say that a sweet romance wouldn't have this kind of cover, but there's a genre expectation that there will be some love scenes if you have this kind of cover. So that was the first thing. And then I wanted the same font on the bottom for my name. That title, award-winning author Tina Holland, is on all of my covers. Partially because when I was published with Book Boutiques, that was the cover, the font they gave me, and it was on all the bottoms of my titles. And Valerie, I'm drawing a blank on Valerie's last name, the cover artist there, she put that on the bottom. So that's a title consistency. So when I had Melody, who did this cover, I said, can you replicate the font that I have on the bottom of these authors? And basically what they do is, if you were to do a search on fonts, you would find, like, you can do like highlight it in like a Google search, and then it'll, or there's a font search, there's a bunch of font search apps, and it'll tell you what it thinks it is based on that. So she went ahead and did that, and then created the font. So, and then I didn't want cartoony because I thought there was a lot of debate. And even now, those cartoony covers are kind of catching a lot of heat because some people think they're, the only reason I would have gone with a cartoony is I think it's a perfect fit for romantic comedies, a rom-com, because it kind of, and it is still very popular in that genre of romance. Like if we had just said, show me the top 100 romance, like without drilling down, I bet a good chunk of them would have been that cartoony cover, regardless of heat. Or animated cover. Anime is kind of coming out, even though it's not an anime. So that's also very popular. So these were kind of the requirements I had for How to Marry a Major. So when I went to do How to Love a Lord, same colors. And then this time, really the not muted. I was very specific when I talked to my cover artist about that. So also for my cover artist, this is the cover I made. I made this one to say, this is kind of what I want, but I don't like this color palette. It's too muted. I don't know what it is, but I'm just like, it doesn't seem like, it seems like it might not be as heat level. So, and I put in like the same font in the whatever in my caption, and I basically just center. So I like the framework, that frame around the couple. Like we kind of have that here. We have a framework around the couple. So I was like, I would like that if we can, similar to this. And I'm like, and I want the fonts to be the same as the first cover. And she's like, okay, sounds good. So I sent her all that. And I think I said, I want bolder colors. I'd like her to wear a green dress. I want some wildflowers, trees, maybe a kind of dilapidated house in the background, and maybe horses. This is what I said. And so, because I kind of wasn't sure, but I was kind of like the font, the blah, and she's like, okay. And she sent me this, so that you can kind of see we kept that same framework. And my name is the same, award-winning, and the fonts are the same as the first book. So when I have a horse here, I got some trellis flowers up the side. I like these daisy looking things. I got the kind of dilapidated house in the background. And I was like, okay, so that looks pretty good. So then I was like, well, I don't really I sent it off to a few of my author friends that write romance. And I said, what do you guys think of this cover? And so they were like, what's up with the horse? I was like, well, I said, well, because they do a lot of horseback riding, like kind of a significant amount. And then I was like, well, I like the green because her eyes are green. That's the reason for that particular color, is her eyes are green to kind of help indicate to the reader. And I wanted him not in a suit. Yeah, because I think the one over here on the left is very modern. Like I believe that's a modern couple framed, or I actually, it may even be AI generated. I have no idea. Or it may have been AI tweaked. I think it was AI tweaked. I think it's an actual couple, but I think, and by AI tweaked, I mean, I think that the artist went ahead and like muted the color palette and maybe change the pose of the arms because that hand looks kind of like freakishly long. So I was like, okay, but I'm like, I just needed to give Melody something to do. So I had her take out, I'm like, can we take out these flowers, the horse? And I said, I think that looks better, and maybe have like some more trees, or, you know, just a bit darker palette to help like the names and everything pop. So she said, sure. So now you can see the differences between the two covers. So now we have like no horse. That house is a little more prominent. I think we switched houses too, but I kind of like it. And then we have more of these like daisy colored flowers, which are very similar to the first book. And then my name on the bottom. So then to do a quick comparison, this is what the final cover looks like. And I think the only other tweak we might make is the author name down here needs a little more oomph to it's not a big deal, but if it came out pronounced a little more, that would probably be better. But now you can notice the similarities between the colors. Like if they were going to buy two books of this, the spine should be fairly similar. They should look alike on the shelf, or if they're sitting next to each other when I'm at an event, or when you know, if somebody has them displayed outward, that they should fit. And so everything is kind of, you know, everything's moved a little bit to get better color. So I may have her move, like take out these bottom daisies that are underneath author, but for the most part, there's the similarity, the palette color, all that is very similar. So I think we have a winner. And some stuff that I wonder about too is I kind of wondered about the couple themselves, because when I was writing it, that's not who I pictured, but that's actually irrelevant. How I think they look is irrelevant. It really matters whether or not I'm meeting genre expectations for the readers. And I am. I have the embrace that indicates there's going to be some heat level. I have the hero and the heroine also indicating some heat level. I have the brighter colors as opposed to the muted colors. One of the reasons is because I do write comedic elements, which was why last year when I was designing How to Marry a Major, I was trying to decide whether or not that was going to work, because those comedic element or those cartoony covers were also they had kind of romantic comedy elements to them, even though they were historical. But I was just like, I don't know. I don't want to do that. And plus, I think the other thing is I think that these covers, because there's a genre expectation, like it's a romance, it's historical, they're dressed in garb. As a matter of fact, I put the covers out there and one of the ladies said it looks historical, and I was like, yeah, yeah, it's a Regency romance. That's what I was going for. Some complaints that I have gotten, not a lot, but and I think it's more from people who don't read the genre, is the fonts. Like that it's not all the same font, but that's by design, so that you can kind of, this is like, it's a how-to book. It's a bad guide how-to book. So I wanted those different, but then the scrolling to give the effect that is very common in the Regency romance. So I think that worked out just fine. So that is probably going to be my cover. And then do you guys have any questions for me today? So like about the cover. So when I ordered stuff from Melody, nobody asked this, but when I ordered stuff from Melody, one of the things that I did is I would, I got the whole package. I've got the ebook cover, the print cover, the audio cover, and then she gives me a banner. And the banner that I had last time I actually use on my website. So that is, that's one of the things that I've got going. So that's how I went about going ahead and picking a cover, but depending on your genre, that's going to be different. That's why I recommend that you go out and you do that research beforehand. and make sure that your cover is in line with what's on the market. I have my friend Chris Stenson, who's the leader of the Morehead Friends Writing Group. He had a cover painted, and he writes dark fantasy, not dark romantasy, dark fantasy. And there's kind of some overlap when you do a search on dark fantasy. You want to make sure that you're not pulling in dark romantasy covers, which is basically fantasy with a lot of sex and probably light bondage. So it's it's a bit of a thing. So it's kind of like, so I compared his stuff to like horror and straight up fantasy. But that's also getting some overlap too, based on the keywords that people are picking when they go ahead and they upload their stuff to Barnes and Noble or Ingram or Amazon or Kobo or wherever you're uploading your covers. So that was one of the things. But when I looked at it, there was such a wide range of covers that he was kind of like, what do you think? Do you think this will work? And I said, yeah, I think it will, because there's such a wide range here. You could do anything. The only thing that probably indicates it's a dark fantasy is if there's elements versus like people. And by elements, I mean like dragons and some of that kind of stuff. So those are kind of the things that you need to look for, is what is the genre supporting. My friend, I'm drawing a blank on her name. Anyway, she wrote a nonfiction kind of a memoir style book. And she was saying, oh, I've gotten some feedback from my publisher that they want to redo the cover. And I was like, oh, okay. So I said, well, let's take a look. And I was like, you can, if they want to, and they're going to pay the costs and redo it and just whatever. Cause I think that she had basically paid the cost to keep a cover from an artist that she had. And they were kind of like that, we'll redo the cover. And I was like, actually, your cover works fine. You can redo it if they want to, but the one that you have now is not what's not selling it. It's something else, probably because it's in line with all the other covers that are in that genre of memoirs and self-help kind of combination of books. It's the same style. So it doesn't hurt to go ahead and review covers that you've got. Like I've got covers out there. I have 2 covers for my first book, The Pilot and the Pinup. And I got the rights back to me because Book Boutiques closed, and I'm going to redo those. And I'm probably going to work with Melody because I don't think I'm going to submit those to another publisher. And I will probably do the cartoony covers because they're romantic comedies. They're short. I may only do the ebook version of it. I may not do a print version. And I think that would probably work out okay because that's the genre expectation. And I think that's holding. Like last year when I did How to Marry Major, those cartoony covers were all over the place. And I was like, God, should I do one of these? Because I do have some funny elements in the story, but I don't know if that will hold up over time. So okay, I got a couple comments that came in. Um, Coffee, Create, and Connect had asked, I'm so torn about whether to use people or person on the cover or use symbolic image or just words. So if you write fantasy, romantasy, actually my friend A. Catherine Noon was having her and her writing partner, Rachel Wilder, are writing kind of young adult LGBTQ, takes place in dark academia book. That's kind of the combination. And we were talking about this because her co-writer, Rachel, would love to have just the kind of covers they had that were very popular. You'll usually have 2 men, not necessarily embraced, but embraced, or not embraced, but like on the cover, and then something about the back. Their most common covers are that, and then the scenery of where the locale scenery of wherever the book is taking place. And so I was like, yeah, but I think these days those animated style covers and stuff like that are extremely popular. So they met with a cover consultant, And that was one of that she was showing them kind of the different things to do. And that was one of the things that came up. And I was like, it is popular. Whether that trend will hold or not, I don't know. But I said, you know what you could do, because you have these these academia events and they have shifters and stuff like that. You could do those symbolic images of like the types of shifters you have on the book, the maybe and you're seeing them a lot in like hardcovers or whatever. So but now they're also becoming quite popular. I don't have one that looks like that on my shelf at all, but that kind of symbolism is becoming popular as well. So you could totally do that. So it kind of depends a little bit on what's out there. But if it's concerning to you, when you look and you do that research in Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever, however you're going to do wide or whatever, when you do that research, look at two things: whether or not it's in, especially Amazon, whether or not it's in Kindle Unlimited, and or if you're going to be in Kindle Unlimited, because that will factor in. The other thing is, because the trends seem to hold longer in Kindle Unlimited, partially because it's a different buyer. It's a buyer who's buying because you're getting paid by page reads, not by the book itself. So the buyer is always willing to try out stuff regardless of what the cover looks like. It's a little like a lending library sort of. So that's one thing to look at. You could end up with the thing where there's a lot of stuff, but then also, can you afford to redo the covers every few years if something changes? Or go back and look at those more timeless pieces and see if that works better, So like the cover that I've got on mine will hold for probably 5 years, unless they decide, oh no, we don't want that. That's too steamy, whatever. And then maybe it'll go to like all the hero. That might be why all the heroine covers are extremely popular right now. So all right. And you said you're not a fan of the busy covers, but looking forward to learning more about covers from this video. Well, thank you. So there are another thing, if you have the time, if you write in, I don't know what genre you write in. What genre do you write in Coffee Create Connect? And I'm glad you like my cover. Thank you. So did I lose her? Let's see what else I've got. All right. Romance. Okay. And then just straight up romance, or like paranormal, or so romance, you can kind of, I think right now romance is probably the most flexible, but not steamy. So then you're not going to want, you probably could get by with a cartoony cover if you like that. You could probably get by with the object covers that are very common, usually indicate a lot of spice, because part of that is because you don't want to land yourself in Amazon jail, where they will not approve the cover. Because like a few years ago, like nude couples were kind of common, like not like you could see everything, but like I have a cover where they're topless, but they're embraced. And so all you kind of see is their arms, and that's it. And those would kind of and even topless men could end you up in cover jail. So a lot of times let's see what we've got. Not steamy, family saga, tragedy to triumph, found family. You could go with a scenery one, like totally just have a scenery, an empty chair. It depends on how big these elements are. And maybe even when you go to upload it and you have the different styles, but I would look at books similar to that. Fade to black romance, or close the door kind of thing. I would maybe look at doing scenery. You could do a woman on the cover, would work perfectly fine for that. But now you see a lot of like if you think of even like Colleen Hoover books, a lot of her books just have like the title and then some elements or something on there, but a lot of flowers and I've never read Colleen Hoover, so I don't know how steamy her stuff is, but there's a lot of those family sagas that take place in small towns and stuff like that. Sometimes you worry about putting people on the cover because it might not be the reader is picturing or wants to picture the characters looking like. True. True. But I also think too, if you don't have a lot of sexy time, you don't need people on the cover, because I think but even like now there's like romantic suspense. There's a lot of romantic suspense novels that are coming out, and it doesn't matter, because the suspense, the thriller part or the mystery part or whatever is the bigger story, even though there's romantic elements in it. So you don't prefer men with blonde hair and blue eyes. We are not the same. My husband has blonde hair and blue eyes. So. But yeah, so if that's what the male love interest looks like, you won't even pick up the book. But yeah, so that was my thing too, is when I was writing How to Marry Major, that those were not the people I pictured in my story. They were they weren't, but it doesn't detract from reader expectation. So for you might be better off with a heroine. I think my friend Tara did this. There's like a beach. I think hers is romantic suspense. There's a beach setting or whatever your setting is, and the heroine is kind of facing it. So all you have is her hair, whatever it is, but you see no facial features whatsoever. And even in those cartoony ones that we were just talking about, I think that's becoming a similar vibe, is they'll have no face, so it's like, okay, that's fine, but okay. So she says she's picturing characters looking a certain way, and then a little ways until the book describes them completely different. Okay. So it's your first novel, and you've been working on it for 3 years and learn more about the craft, but I'm just about to okay, yeah, for cover design. So also for cover design, a couple of things. There are a bunch of places. Are you going to go wide, or are you going to go just with Amazon? Let's say an elderly widow looking back on her life in part 1, part 2. We see a young girl, single mom, who ends up connecting, their lives changing, the lives of thousands of people at the very end of it. Yeah. So what I would do is I would look, literally, when you go to do that Amazon portion, go and look up like romance, family sagas with romance, those sorts of things, and see what kind of covers you pull up. Because my guess is you would do fine with a scene of some sort, whether it's the family house or a cabin or something like that. The lives of thousands of people at the very end of the book, but along the way, there's a lot of romance, also tragedy. Yeah, it sounds more family saga than romance to me. So like who would be a good Danielle Steele? I mean, that's old school, but that's sort of, actually look up because Danielle Steele wrote a bunch of like family sagas like that. So look up a Danielle Steele book in Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and then go ahead and in Amazon, it'll be much easier to drill down, find out where it's ranking, in what category is the highest category it's ranking in. And it'll probably be something like family sagas. Then pull up the top 100, just like I did. And then you'll be able to see what are the most common covers. Also look at the publication date, because if some of them are in the top 100, but they've been out for like 5 years, that'll give you more of a timeless quality. So that's not to say they haven't updated the cover, because publishers will occasionally do that. Like for a long time, romance covers, like I think Joanna Lindsay, Catherine Coulter, a lot of those older styles, they would have the print on the front. God, I wish I had one in here. But they'd have the print on the front, and then you'd open up the inside, and that would be the bodice ripper cover. But it was like all the fancy lettering, Joanna Lindsay. That's what it looked like before. So on my book, oops, sorry about that. On my book, what would happen is it would just be this, and probably pink or red or blue or, whatever color I said they wanted to put on. And then the very inside would be this picture. And that was very common in the 90s to do that. So, but yeah, I would look up family saga. I would look up like Danielle Steele would be a good one. Danielle Steele. There's another one that I'm thinking of too that was very common for writing family style sagas, and see what those covers are, and see if there's anything new that has come out. Part one takes place during the summer of 1950. How long is this book? Is it like long? Like, should you break it up into like different saga parts? Let's see. You're also using, okay, part one takes place in 1956 in a small southern town. Part two, we see present day Cape Cod, Massachusetts with a young single mom as the POV. Okay. And then the last comment you had is I'm also using talk to text, and between that and autocorrect are typos. Oh, like on here. Okay, on here or like in your book. So typos are, you can catch a lot of typos just in your basic software of, if we're talking about the book, just Amazon. Okay. Okay. Oh, so you're just going to do Kindle Unlimited. Okay. So then what I would do is I would still look up like Danielle Steele or someone, or if you've read a book recently that has a similar, like that family saga vibe, something that's similar to that. And then, I would look that up. And then when you go in and do that search, you're going to look for the Kindle Unlimited, which may or may not matter in that type. But if it does, and you can do Kindle Unlimited just for the ebook, and then you can have the paperback out everywhere because Kindle Unlimited is only refers to ebooks. So you could do that. But yeah, you can do that. And then also when you're looking at stuff like that, see who the cover artist was, especially if it's an independent publisher. And you can usually find that out if you've never heard of the press. Like if you were to go look at my books, they'll say Dutch Girl Press, and that's my press. That's the press I operate. And then or it'll have my name. Some of my older work that I self-published has my name as the publisher. So those would be kind of interesting. And then find out, who did, or if you find cover art you did like, you can always email that author. And yes. So if you love Danielle Steele, go ahead and check out Danielle Steele. Like she may not, I don't know. I actually don't even know if Danielle Steele's still alive, but that kind of a thing is very helpful to look and say, even if you have a picture in your mind of what it should be. So it's not, boy, we were really are over time. I usually only go till noon, but that's good. I love the questions. Because whatever questions you have will help out somebody else. So does that answer everything that you had, Coffee Create Connect? If not, I will feel free. I love talking about publishing. So this is like, if you think of something later, go ahead and put it in the comments below. And then I will happily, or you can connect with me on Facebook or whatever. So, and you're saying the book you've gone through pretty thoroughly and with Pro Writing Aid for grammar, spelling, sticky sentences, and so on. Yeah, so that's good. I know a bunch of people that use Pro Writing Aid. I've heard that's very good. If you have Grammarly or even just your spell check, you can catch a lot of stuff when you're speaking to the computer. Because I did text to speech to text with, I think it was Buck and Chastity, because I had it, but I didn't have it on my computer for whatever reason. So I'm like, I had to read it. So I'd already written it. It was published. And when I went with Book Boutiques as the second publisher of the book, then I went ahead and I was like, oh, okay, I've got to. So yeah, so I just have one more series that I'm probably going to be doing covers on. I think I'm going to do those cartoony covers because they're romantic comedies. There's some hate to them, but that doesn't seem to matter in the cartoony covers. So I have covers that I can use from my previous publishers, but I'm just not sure they will do as well as the cartoony cover would. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna go cartoony cover on these. And I may do that even with, like, I have a cowboy series out, so I might see what's popular there. Okay, so you are any advice on getting the back cover of the book? So if you are just paying, when it comes to paying for book covers, first of all, you can do it yourself. You can use BookBrush, which it's about, like, if you're going to pay a cover artist, but you have like some skills, or like, I don't have a lot of money, I think is it like a couple $100? I think it's maybe for the super whatever BookBrush is like $200 a year, but I might be totally wrong on that. But you are allowed 10 free covers. So you can go check them out and see, and you can make a cover on there. The other place you can make a cover is Canva. So if you're going to make it yourself, or if you just buy the digital one, because you can get a digital copy cover for pretty cheap, like especially like something as simple as what you're talking about. There's book cover design. There's like a bunch of them. I will put some links to some cover places down below, and you can buy a bunch of covers there. But you can get stuff as cheap as $25. You could do trade-off work. Like if you know how to do something and somebody else knows how to do something else, you could do that. My friend Chris actually bought cover art bought the picture of, do I have his book here? Yep, I have one here. Okay. This is his first book. It's called Sins of the Mother. And he bought this cover art. The first cover actually that he showed me was this one. And I'm like, I don't know if that works or whatever. But he took this cover because the cover artist, the artist actually, I don't know that she did covers up until Chris hired her. She made this one and then she did this. And he has both of these pieces of artwork in his house. And he contracted her for the next ones. He actually did, I think he contracted her for all of them, and he probably paid a little more money because she's an artist. So this is like a painting, and this is the dark fantasy with like kind of horror undertones, like that kind of a dark fantasy. And so I told him like, this actually works for a lot of stuff that's out there right now. So the back cover, once you've got the front, you can build the back cover in Amazon. And you could build it in, if you were going to go wide and you wanted to go draft to digital, you could go to wide, draft to digital. And that, my friend Tiffany did that, TJ Fear. And she did everything through draft to digital. She did the formatting. She's an artist, so she did her own cover creation. And you can do that on Canva, or I said like BookBrush if you want to take it on yourself. Otherwise, you can hire that ebook cover pretty cheap. So, and I'll put some links down below on some places where I've seen that you can get covers or whatever. But most, if you're going to do like go through draft to digital, they'll create the back cover for you. They will I think what they would do is similar to mine here. They would kind of like, this is the front, and then they will make the spine, and they will probably take like the side color here and wrap it around. So, but if you're hiring a cover artist, you just want to ask for the ebook, the audio book, unless you're never going to do audio. I asked for audio, even though I haven't done audio for this yet, but I'm like, I want that just in case. And I don't plan to buy anything anytime soon. So my recommendation was you could either go to BookBrush with it, or when you're uploading to Amazon, they'll ask you, like, you put the ebook up there in Kindle Unlimited, and then it'll ask you, do you want to make a print book? And you say yes. And you can use their software and make a print one, because I think it was this one. So I'm in this group called Morehead Friends Writing Group, and this one here, this is a photograph. I don't know what that is. This is a photograph, right? And I did the formatting for this one, and then Tiffany did the color. And then when I went to do the print, I had such problems with the print that I had to build the print in Amazon. And this is just, so here's what it is. It's just this cover here. And then because there's so much black, I just went with a black here and a black there. But that was all done in the Amazon create a cover. So you can totally create the cover in Amazon or wherever, so that is possible. Any other questions? Nothing? Okay. All right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, like I said, feel free to like this video. It helps the algorithms. And if you like the content, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Like I said, we meet every first Friday of the month at 11:30 Central Standard Time. And I go ahead and I will talk about a hot topic. This month it was covers because I just got done doing this. Next month I could talk about whatever, because hopefully I will have How to Love a Lord coming out in the world. So go ahead and do that. I will put links for any cover art stuff, as well as some of the books that I talked about today. So, and I'll put a link to my own cover artist, Melody Simmons, and she is based in South Africa. She does a lot of, she's kind of genre romance style, but she does a lot of romantasy. She does the cartoony covers. She does a little bit of everything. So, and I'm trying to think of some other cover. Valerie Tibbs was the cover artist I used to have, but I don't think she's currently taking clients. So, but I will put the links for them down below. And then some places where you can get discounted covers, as well as where to find a cover artist or whatever, if you haven't already hired one. Or the other thing is, I have had friends tackle the cover art themselves, and then when they make money, they'll go out and buy a better cover. So that is always an option. And like I said, if you're just going to Amazon or Kindle Unlimited, you probably have a lot more flexibility in cover, because like I said, people just don't buy the same way that they buy on, you're not doing as much eye catching as you are when you're trying to sell on the store shelf of whatever store it is, virtual or actual. So, all right. Well, with that, the next First Friday lunch I have is going to be June 6th at 11:30 Central Standard Time, and go ahead and pencil me in for lunch.